it's a Tuesday, a beautiful day, a beautiful afternoon, and wherever you are in the world, I'm not sure if it's 12:30 where you are, but here it's time for the Mindset Michelle TV show. And I'm so pleased to have you joining me again this week. And I'm so pleased to have this week's extra special guest, Leanne Camillieri. Hello, Leanne.
Hi, Michelle. How are you going?
I'm good, thank you. Well, it's an extra special guest because it's another way and another angle that we're going to be looking at the area of mindset. And it's so important, whether it's COVID or whatever it is that's going on in your world. We always have these challenges and these things that we need to keep working on our mental well-being and our mental health to keep improving and building those habits to keep us going. Mm-hmm. And today's extra special guest is a positive psychology practitioner. And Leanne has an organisation called Reset to Thrive. But she didn't start off here. And again, this is where I'm fascinated how people in their life journey and in their life story come to be working in this mindset area and understanding so much about how people tick, how you and I tick. And yet they didn't necessarily start off there. But instead of me telling you more about Leanne, please let us know some more about your story and let us know what a positive psychology practitioner is.
Hi, Michelle. So I will just say hello from Adelaide. It's 12 o'clock here and the sun is shining. So where did I start? Well, I guess I have quite a diverse story to tell. As a young child, I missed a lot of school, actually. I was quite unwell as a young child. And then growing up, around about 10 years of age, I experienced a childhood trauma where the boundaries were crossed by an adult, and that really affected how I showed up in the world, really impacted how I felt about myself, and I guess I carried a lot of guilt and all sorts of things within. I became a carer. My grandmother had Alzheimer's, and I cared for her for 9 years. And we went through quite a challenging time. We cared for her until she passed away at home. Then I found myself very lost in life, and got some help, and that helped me to move forward a bit in my life and overcome some of those challenges. So that was very helpful for me, and I sort of then moved on to starting to live my life in a way where I felt empowered. I've worked in a few different fields, in healthcare, financial services, and then I moved into shipbuilding, which was a really fascinating area to work in, and a place I followed my son there, actually, as he was a young apprentice, and I followed him there because it sounded like such a wonderful field to be working in. But what I learned quickly was that we were working towards a valley of death. And that's a horrible term, isn't it? Like valley of death.
What does it even mean, especially in shipbuilding?
Well, it was a term coined by those that really shipbuilding. There was no future after 2019. So we were sort of the valley of death was something we became used to seeing as a bell curve, where there was a lot of, we sort of ramped up, got a lot of work, and then all of a sudden it was dropping off, and then there was no future. And so that sort of brought about a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. It cultivated a lot of, behaviours and just, a really challenging time to be working in that period. I was very involved in cultural improvement. It was never my role, but it was something that I became very passionate about. And really, from my own challenges in life, I drew on those, understanding that having some understanding really helped to, I guess, have some resources to draw on to overcome these things. So I started to explore some more things. I really wanted to make a difference there. So I did a bit of extra learning, and that gave me some resources that I could draw on to do some stuff around well-being in the workplace. So I started doing mindfulness in the workplace, and following that up with some well-being sessions around, how to care for your well-being and all that sort of thing. So then I experienced my own redundancy. And funnily enough, it was a shock because although redundancy was something that was on the table for all of us, at the time of my redundancy, it was really unexpected. I was expecting it sort of later down the track. And let me tell you that redundancy, for those who might not have experienced it, it can be a really lonely experience. My whole experience, that the day I became redundant, leading up to that time, I'd been talking to someone in the organisation around, stuff, to improvement stuff and things like that, and I was feeling really good and excited about that, and that person came to my desk and said, "Would you come with me, Leanne?" I said, "Yes, absolutely." And in my mind, I'm thinking, finally, we're here. We're going to have this chat, and it's going to be great. We went down to HR, and I'm still thinking, oh, this is amazing. And I sat down, and the two words that I remember are redundancy, or three words: redundancy and 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, wow, like this was a real shock. And I went to my office, had a cry. I went back to the bathroom, should I say, I had a cry. Went back to my desk, didn't really know what to do, felt really lost. And the whole process, look, the organisation did, the best thing they could at the time, but the experience of redundancy was something that I found was a really isolating, lonely experience, where people are very lost. You don't really know where to go. There's all these mixed emotions, you can feel unsupported. So after my redundancy, I went and worked in defence. But while I did that, I also completed a master's degree in applied positive psychology. And then this year, I took a leap of faith and went into my own business. So here I am now.
Wow, what a story. And thank you. I mean, I really could feel for you as you were describing all of that. And thank you for being so honest and vulnerable in sharing it as well, because I know many people watching will relate to your story around redundancy or other really difficult situations that they may have had in the workplace when, they've been tapped on the shoulder and they've expected one thing and something else has happened, whether it's a promotion or not even a redundancy, but a straight out, we're getting rid of you and you've got a week to go. It's something that I think, as the value of employees has kind of changed in organisations, it's meant that more and more people have similar stories. So thank you so much for sharing yours today. But I'm fascinated by this theme and the incident that happened when you were younger, taking care of your grandmother, the experiences in the workplace, that there's some quite significant life events happen to you. So I'm fascinated, and maybe you can explain it in what success means to you, given that you've had quite significant life events, but you then went and studied positive psychology. So how does that all kind of fit with what you would call your view of success or your version of success?
I think that even though I've experienced redundancy, adversity. I have always been quite resilient, and I think I have my parents to thank for that, because they are quite resilient. They've had their own adversities, but I've always had that, optimistic outlook. And so I've always had that kind of growth mindset. I was 14 years old when I left school, which was part of this whole experience that I had, and I, for a long time didn't feel like I belonged. I remember at 14 not wanting to, wanting to see if I could do something else, trying to stay at school, but doing something else in the next year so that I could sort of be there. And I wasn't allowed to. I felt very deflated, but I still wanted to do something. And I guess, sorry, I've gone off track a little bit, but the reason I'm telling you this, the reason I'm telling you this is because even though I had those challenges, I've had successes as well. And I think success to some people can be the money, it can be the car, it can be, a beautiful house. And don't get me wrong, they are all beautiful things and beautiful rewards for a lot of effort. But I think the success is the overcoming of those challenges. And it doesn't take away that they were there. It doesn't take away the hurt or the pain that might have been there. But I've worked hard at bringing reason and meaning to that. And I'm so, success for me is I have 3 beautiful children, or adult children now. I have a wonderful relationship. I have learned so many wonderful lessons that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. And although that might be hard to understand by some, I really am. I really do feel grateful for the lessons that I've learned in life. So that's success for me.
Wonderful. And again, a really profound answer, and one that makes a whole lot of sense to children, being able to overcome adversities. I think that people that are able to, most people have difficulties and difficult life circumstances at one point or another, but being able to talk about it is, I think, a real skill and something that you are showing beautifully today, to be able to share your experiences, acknowledge that they were difficult, but also that they were part of your journey and what makes up who you are. So people watching today are fascinated around what is a positive psychology practitioner and what they would have to say, especially in terms of the science around mindset and creating and building that successful mindset. So what sort of tips or suggestions might you have for people?
Okay. Well, I guess a positive psychology practitioner or someone in positive psychology, we look at the strengths of the person and work with what's working well. That does not discount the challenges or, the life challenges that we experience. It's not looking through rose-coloured glasses, and it's not that happyology either. But it's having those resources to draw on in times of challenge. So a lot of my work is underpinned by psychological capital, and that is best described in an acronym, which they Fred Luthans calls HERO, and that is hope. So, being able to have pathways towards goals, efficacy, which you might consider to be more like confidence, resilience, which is, having those resources to draw on when we are experiencing challenge, having like a toolkit, and optimism, so seeing things as not permanent and that this too shall pass. So having a a growth mindset. With mindset, I'm sure you've heard of Carol Dweck. I love a lot of her work around the growth mindset, and when things aren't going to plan, using it as an opportunity to learn and grow. When something doesn't go quite right, looking at what has worked well in that process, where the struggle has been, and what I might need to move forward, and sort of thinking about what those resources might be. Might it be a mentor? Might it be thinking in a different way? We can be very closed. There's this whole fixed or growth mindset. If we have a fixed mindset, we're very closed, and we don't really we're limited in our creativity and the way we think. Whereas if we have an open growth mindset, we're going to see things in a broader perspective.
I love that whole, and I'll just pause you for a moment so that we can recap, because there was a lot of information there, and that was really fabulous stuff. So positive psychology is actually around using people's strengths, so acknowledging that there can be some difficult periods and some challenging times, but also looking for the gold and the strengths that people have drawn on within themselves to get through that, and then repeating through that as part of the growth mindset and focusing on that growth mindset. The other thing that I'd love to talk a little bit more about is this HERO and the acronym. The hero's journey is such a part of coaching and working with people and taking them on that journey. And it is like a journey, whether it's weight loss or about your business or about relationships. It's always got those different elements, where there's the hope and the optimism, and then there's the dark days and the positive days, and that whole story arch that people play out within their life. But I love that the hero idea and working with people and that framework. It'd be great. Can people see that HERO framework on your website? Because it would be
no, it's not on my website, but it is. It's not. I want to say up front, it's not my own work. It is Professor Fred Luthen's, his work around psychological capital, and it conveniently makes that acronym of HERO, and that I think when we think about the challenges that we face, drawing on that hero inside, that hero within that, these are the resources, so to draw on when we are experiencing challenge. So hope is being able to consider pathways towards our goals, and if I want to get here, it's easy to think that it might be just straight here, but the reality is that probably won't happen, and we will go backwards and forwards and have different challenges. So it's okay, I've got one pathway, but there are other pathways towards that goal as well that I consider. When I consider what's working well and where am I struggling, well, perhaps when I'm struggling, I can draw on one of those other pathways to get towards my goal. So and it really helps with motivation towards those goals.
I agree. The hope element, I think, is so important. Like, people have just spent the last 2 years hoping that there'd be a vaccine, and then hoping that the vaccine would work, and then hoping that we would get out of lockdown one day, and hoping that we would go back to some version of a new normal. And I'm quite aware with people that we're working with that now, as they're going back to life and whatever version of the new normal is, that they're facing similar challenges in life again. And so it's reframing that hope again to, well, okay, underlying everything is actually your capability of being able to live and work and have an enjoyable life every day, a positive focused life. Yeah. A life where you can have those strengths and that resilience. And that comes from the hope. And I love that hero in the the journey and the different milestones. And I can hear that your dog loves it too.
I'm so sorry. You can guarantee that, can't you? I'm so sorry about the dog in the background.
Children and dogs.
I do apologise.
He's trying to be on screen now because they like to hold the camera.
I hope that's not hurting anyone's ears. I do apologise. But there's a challenge. There's a challenge that we can move past. So it's not permanent. And
I think we're demonstrating another part of it, that you know, things happen in life, and it's about in the moment just relaxing and letting everything be okay, that there are no rights or wrongs. It just is what it is. And part of that hope is that you'll learn the skills, you'll get the materials, and you'll understand more and more of yourself to be able to then self-manage through all of the different challenges or dog barks or children or whatever comes up throughout your day.
I also like to sort of draw on grit too. Like when I think about my challenges and where I'm at, like even getting to university, like the whole time I was at university, every phone call I got that was a private number, I was certain that it was the university saying, sorry, Leanne, we've made a mistake. You know, you can't continue with this master's degree. And you know, so for me, it was a bit of a learning experience that I have an element of imposter syndrome. And so, you know, gritty, or, you know, having grit is that, you know, what Angela Duckworth, she talks about it as you know, a passion that's sustained by persistence and you know, and keeping going even when you're falling down, like that whole, you know, I get knocked down but I get back up again, and I have become a very gritty person. And I think that's an important element when we think about positive psychology. A lot of the skills, you know, a lot of the resources, you know, you might not know what they are now, but they are learnable and they are developable. So when we do have you know, think about the challenges that we might experience in life, having some resources to draw on is really, really, really helpful. So when we think about the resilience piece of Hero and that whole toolkit, if you like, for me, when I think about resilience, I think about that. Well, actually, it was described by well-being was described by someone as, you know, sort of thinking of yourself as a bit of a garden, and the resilience being the nutrients in the soil. So and I really liked that, because, you know, when I think about you know, how I show up, if I can draw on those resources, those things that I've learned over time, to those nutrients, they are going to affect how I show up. So, you know, my nutrients are going to be different to your nutrients, but, you know, some of the core nutrients that I do draw on is my strengths, understanding, you know, what they are and drawing on those in times of challenge. Mindfulness is a very big part, you know, of that for me as well. And you know, mindfulness and positive psychology fit so well together, because it's that whole self-awareness and understanding our emotions and you know, and our thoughts and how we're showing up in challenging times. You know, those key internal messages that we experience. So
and I think it's really important as well, that when you're talking about how we all have a lot of similar skills, you know, you can take that down to the resilience or the nutrients that you're building around the food that you eat, or the amount of water that you drink, or the amount of sleep that you get each night. So having that awareness that even those most fundamental things, like in a garden, the amount of food and fertilizer, the amount of water, the amount of daylight and sunshine, you know, just being aware of even the fact that your body in many ways is a mechanical machine, and doing those base level physiological elements can actually be such a great starting point for the rest of the resilience. And then the rest of it being the kindness, the meditation, the gratitude, and all of those other tools that you're so perfectly saying that you can learn. And as part of that positive focus or positive psychology, you can develop. And then each time that you go into looking and studying in this area, you learn a little bit more about yourself and about the area, about yourself and about the area. And I really love how, in fact, it was so funny because as the dog was barking, you were talking, I imagined the dog burying a bone and the bone decomposing, and it was more nutrients for the gut. So you can get the nutrients from anywhere, and you can get the imagery from anywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I think of resilience, I think of another acronym. So we've talked about HERO, but these two fit really well together, and it's the Perma Framework. I'm not sure if you've heard of that before, or the people watching have heard of that before, but it's a framework that was developed by Professor Martin Seligman. And so P is for positive emotions, so feeling a sense of joy and calmness and happiness. E is engagement. So that is, feeling interested in the things that we're doing, having that sense of flow, being able to draw on our skills and our strengths. Relationships is having that important connection, and connection really is one of the number one ingredients or nutrients in our well-being toolkit or garden, if you like. We need to have that good positive relationships for us to be able to flourish. Meaning, so that's feeling like we have that sense of belonging, and that what we're doing is valuable and worthwhile. Accomplishment is just having those small goals and working towards them, and then health, that part that you mentioned about having sleep and getting good nutrients into our bodies, and exercise as well. So it's a whole package. But there's so many things in each of those areas that there are so many that we couldn't talk about now. But there's so many things that you can sort of draw on to build in those toolkits.
Well, we could, but there's not enough time, unfortunately. I think one of the wonderful things that people would be understanding from what we're saying today is there is a number of different frameworks, and the positive psychology is one of those frameworks, and the PERMA and the HERO. And I guess what we're encouraging people to do is to pick any of those, or pick a few of those and make up your own and follow some of these frameworks, because they're scientifically based. They're based in neuroscience and NLP and other different scientific methodologies that have been shown to actually assist people to create that positive mindset, to create that mindset for success. And it can be the success, I'm sure, for you when you're going through that terrible time with the redundancy. It can be the success of getting out of bed in the morning when you're feeling really low, and all of those things, because then it can be, well, I need to fertilize my garden to be able to grow new flowers and new jobs and new business and new this or new that. Or it can be just, tending to the basics of the garden, some of the shamanic stuff around this where you actually go with the seasonal flow. It's quite beautiful, and for another day, obviously. So I know that we could keep talking about the different frameworks, and for those that want to contact you to talk a little bit more about your business, Reset to Thrive, and connect with you, what's the best way of connecting?
They can contact me through LinkedIn, so just Leanne Camillieri at LinkedIn, or my website, which is resettothrive.com.au.
Fabulous. Is that 2 with a number 2 or a TO?
TO, Reset, TO. Right.
That's wonderful. And if you were to give some advice to your younger self, what do you think that advice would be?
Believe in yourself and trust the process. Everything's going to be okay.
Wonderful. And it is going to be okay. And what a beautiful blessing and wonderful way to finish off the show for today. So, Leanne Camillieri, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a real pleasure, and thank you so much for sharing this wealth of expertise you have in this area of positive psychology. We're all very grateful for you. And to everybody watching on the show today, thank you again for coming and for watching the show and being a part of this ongoing journey in my mission to create this positive focus on mindset and positive psychology around the world, wherever you are. So from my heart to your heart, Be great, be fabulous, and be you.